Okay. Let's sing the first verse. Years I spent in vanity and pride, caring not my Lord was crucified, knowing not it was for me He died on Calvary. Mercy there was great and grace was free, pardon there was multiplied to me. There my burden so found liberty at Calvary. Oh, the love that drew salvation's plan. Oh, the grace that brought it down to man. Oh, the mighty gulf that God did span at Calvary. Mercy there was great and grace was free. Pardon there was multiplied to me. There my burdened soul found liberty at Calvary.
As always, thank you, Jimmy. We appreciate that. Appreciate you guys being with us and in the building. Appreciate you being with us online. And again, let me just give a caveat to our online folks. We're going to be talking about Scientology tonight. So if that is your I don't even honestly I don't know to call it a faith or what it is. That's your belief system. Then we sincerely think that you're wrong, and we invite you to come and talk to us about that, and let's try to show you the truth, or just stay here and listen to us, and then call us with any question you might have. But we don't mean to be offensive or rude or condescending. We just want to point out error and speak the truth. So God bless you if you happen to be watching us tonight. Now, if you'll turn to Psalm chapter 8, this is and these are cults. Every cult that we run into, they have a very low view of God and a very high view of man. If you remember, especially last week with the Mormons, they believe you could be a God. That God the Father was just a man like me and you. He earned his way to godhood because he did all the right things, and you can too. And so they have this very low view of God, a very high view of ourselves, of mankind. Scientology is no different. And Jehovah's Witness, their belief systems is out there. They got some crazy things, I think. Mormonism is to me bizarre. But you ain't heard nothing yet when we get into the Scientology. Next week we're going to talk about maybe Seventh-day Adventist, and then eventually we're going to talk about Pentecostalism. We're going to talk about universalism. So we're going to do this for 4, 5, 6 more weeks, and because I want you to know what's out there. And again, my point is not to mock anybody, not to make fun of them, although it's pretty easy to when you think about some of the things they believe. My point is I want us to know the truth, because when they come knocking at your door, you encounter them somewhere, I want you to know how to respond to them, how to answer what they believe, and how you can get them. It is my belief that a lot of Mormons and a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses would have maybe converted to Christianity if more Christians knew how to talk to them when they came to our doors. We do one of two things. We go turn off all the lights and hide. We don't want to talk to them. So they leave. Or we take their little manual and we're real cordial to them and have a nice day and all that kind of stuff. But we don't do the thing we should be doing, and that is confront them about their error and tell them about the truth of Jesus. And so that's my purpose in this. I want you to know what they believe, so when they come at you with these things, you can counteract it with Bible stuff. So in Psalm chapter 8, here's a passage that I think that people like Scientologists do not know or don't care, because they deify man. They build us up, they lower God. But look what Psalm 8 says. O Lord our God, how majestic is your name in all the earth, who have displayed your splendor above the heavens. From the mouth of infants and nursing babes you have established strength, because of your adversaries, to make the enemy and the revengeful cease. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon, the stars which you have ordained, here's the line. What is man that you take thought of him? You know, who are we? We're not gods. You know, we're not deity. Verse 5, yet you have made him a little lower than God, and you crown him with glory and majesty. You make him to rule over the works of your hand. You have put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the heavens and the fish of the sea, whatever passes through the paths of the sea. O Lord our God, how majestic is your name in all the earth. That is the passage that every one of these cults dismiss, or passages similar to that. So on your handout, you'll see Scientology is and I say it's a controversial new religion, and I say it's new because it came about in the 1950s. And so anytime you have a religion that starts in the 1950s, that's pretty new. It was created entirely in the mind of a man named L. Ron Hubbard. L stands for Lafayette Ron Hubbard, that's his name. He is a science fiction writer. That's what he does. That's what he did. He wrote science fiction. But this is what he did. When people, it's one thing to be deceived. It's another thing to be deceived when people tell you they're deceiving you. You know what I'm saying? And so here's out of L. Ron Hubbard's own words, this is what he said. This is his quote. You don't get rich writing science fiction. If you want to get rich, you start a religion. That's his own words. And so he's telling you right up front, I couldn't hack it as a science fiction writer, so my science fiction, I turned into a religion, and you guys are buying into it because you're paying me all this money to do these things. We'll talk about all that in a minute. He was a failure. Nobody's buying his stuff. Until he wrote a book in like 1958 called Dianetics. And in Dianetics, he had a science fiction work where he said that the human mind is divided into two parts. You have a rational part and then an analytical part, and became a bestseller. People loved it. It's a science fiction plan. Scientology is a science fiction plan. It's based on science fiction. And here's what's scary to me. There's 700 Scientology centers in 65 countries of the world. Last year they did a poll of 3,000 Scientologists. Right? They randomly picked 3,000 Scientologists, and they asked them what their background was. Where'd you come from? 66% of the 3,000 said they came out of some type of Christianity. Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian. 66% of those 3,000 people came out of a Christian background. 70% of those 66% said they still consider themselves Christian. So after everything we're going to talk about tonight, 70% of 66% of this 3,000 will still tell you they're a Christian person. So when you talk to these people, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, Universalists, Scientologists, all that stuff, most of them will say, yeah, I'm a Christian. So we believe in God, we believe in Jesus, all that stuff. But it's the definition of those things that matter. And that's why you and I need to know how we properly define those and articulate those as a Christian, so we can say, no, we're talking about a different God. You're not talking about the God that I'm worshiping. Or you're talking about a different Jesus. But this guy wrote this book called Dianetics. And in this little introduction that I wrote out for you, here it is in a nutshell. We're going to talk about it in more detail. He believes, or Scientologists believe, that all human beings are immortal spirits. And he calls them thetans. They're called thetans. So every one of us is a thetan. All right? We're an immortal person. You know what that means, right? It means we're a God. Every human being that has ever existed is a God. And so here's what he says happened. Now, when I tell you how he started this, you can tell it's one of his science fiction books. And what's scary is people are believing this by the thousands. But here's what he says happened. All these thetans, all these gods, like me and you, trillions of years ago, got bored. We just got bored. We were sitting around where we were sitting around the seeds, and we got bored. So we emanated or created out of us a mental universe, the universe that we have now. We all just sitting around getting bored, and because we're getting bored, we need something to play around with. And so we in our mind, we all got together and we agreed on it. So it's an agreed on thing, but it's not an actual reality. So we created this universe so we could come and play. And they have a word for this and all that. They call them sports, and they have a fancy word for it. We'll talk about it in a minute. And so what happened over trillions of years, because in Scientology you get reincarnated, you keep coming back over and over and over again. So you and I have been living for trillions of years as these godlike people. And so over trillions of years, bad things happen to us. And I'll give you an example of what they say. And so these bad things happen to you, and it puts in your mind this one part of your mind. And again, I'm going to talk about all this in detail when we get there. But it puts in one part of your mind all your fears, all your negative emotions, all that stuff. They call them engrams. So over trillions of years, over trillions of lifetimes, and all that kind of stuff, you get all these engrams in you. And so over time, here's what's happened. Me and you just forgot we were gods. We just forgot. Because we got so occupied with this world, we got so invested in this world, we got so caught up in the things of this world, and there's so many negative engrams that went into our part of our mind that you and I just blocked it out. We forgot where we came from. We forgot who we are. So the only way now to remember is Scientology. That's the only way you can ever remember. L. Ron Hubbard has figured it out, and he has developed a plan. And it's a 3-step process, and it takes sometimes lifetimes to do it. And it costs tens and tens of thousands of dollars. And so when a group like this starts, and it costs money to move up, it becomes very elitist. And that's why you have people like Tom Cruise and John Travolta and Kirstie Alley and Sonny Bono. And the most surprising one of all is Forrest Whitaker, that guy that plays in Good Morning Vietnam and all that stuff. Because what happens is you see your buddy in Hollywood or your rich friend, and he's basically buying his way through the steps. Well, you won't be part of that club. So you join too. So it becomes very elitist because not everybody can afford to do this. And so only the richer folks are doing it, and some of the poorer folks are doing it. They just can't afford to. They'll never make it to the top, because they can't afford to get there. And so these Scientologists are making all this money because these people are trying to buy their way to remember where they used to come from. That you were a god, you were a thief, you're a thief, and you forgot you were a thief. So you got to remember that. And so they do these things they call audits. And so you go to these Scientology centers, and they basically it's a weird looking thing. They use this little e-meter. And they hook you up to an electric shock thing, and you hold these little tin cans in your hand, and you start talking. You just start talking to them. And when the meter changes, when there's a fluctuation in the meter, then they say they've hit an engram in you. And they record it, We were talking about ducks and the meter fluctuates. So there's something that happened trillions of years ago, somewhere in my path, with a duck, that's caused me a negative emotion or a negative thing. So now the therapist is going to write this down, and I'm paying him to do all this. And so when the therapy session ends, then me and him now going to talk about ducks, and I got to try to figure out trillions of years ago what happened to me with duck, so I can get over it, so that I can become all that I need to be. Now, when I tell you that, it sounds like somebody wrote a book, and it sounds like somebody was going to try to make a movie, and the movie didn't sell, so they said, let's just make a religion out of it. That's what Scientology is. That's it in a nutshell. Now, on your paper there, the doctrine of God, the theology. For them, the concept of God is really not important. It's what we call panentheistic. Panentheistic. It's not pantheism. Pantheism is the belief that the universe is just a manifestation of God. In other words, God's in everything. Monotheism, what we believe is there's one God that we worship. Panentheism, what they believe, it means that the universe is in God. In other words, the supreme being for them is not a supreme being. It's all of us together as thetans who make up the supreme being. So they'll use words like infinity, nature, and their buzzword, their big word is the eighth dynamic. They'll say the eighth dynamic. When they say the eighth dynamic, what they're talking about is this concept of all of us together forming a supreme deity. That's what they use. So on those notes, number 2, their supreme being is purposely left undefined. They don't tell you what it is because it's not relevant to them. It doesn't really matter. Because you're actually a God, you just forgot you were one. And then they use words like nature, infinity, eighth dynamic, all theta life, that kind of thing. There are a multitude of thetans who collectively with all life could be said to comprise the supreme being. So we all together form that. What's our response? The Bible teaches there is only one sovereign and perfect creator God from all eternity. He's without beginning, he's without end, he is immutable, he exists in 3 persons, he's infinitely holy, he's just, and he's loving. There's your scripture. Genesis 1:1, Isaiah, I made another error. April didn't correct my error. Genesis 1:1, Isaiah 43:10 through 11, Acts 5:3 through 4, Isaiah 61:8, and there's multitudes of others. There is only one God. That's what Psalm chapter 8 is talking about. They don't have a lot about this because it's not important to them. Because the important part to them is that you are a God, you forgot you were one. So it doesn't really matter, you define it however you want because you're one anyway. You just got so caught up in this world that you forgot where you came from. The doctrine of man, this is where they get really even more bizarre. They say that man is an immortal spirit. And if we do Hindu, I may do one night where we talk about Hinduism and Buddhism together. But the Hindus have this philosophy called an Atman. I told you a couple weeks ago, the Hindus believe it's like all of our souls collectively form a jigsaw puzzle. And so there's this big jigsaw puzzle in the sky, they call it the Atman. And when I achieve nirvana, and get to a certain level, then my soul is released from reincarnation. I keep getting reincarnated over and over again. And then finally when I achieve nirvana, my soul is released from that. I don't have to go through that reincarnation again. And my soul goes up and forms this Atman. And so my soul is up there. And I cease to be reincarnated. Then everybody else doing the same thing. So when you get to that, you go up and you fill in this big puzzle. They believe the same thing about man here, Scientologists. They believe that you're a thetan and you're part of that big gigantic puzzle, that spiritual being. However, in their case, you just forgot. So you need Scientology, you need to pay them money, you need to go through their processes, their audits and all that stuff, so that you can remember where you came from. That's the point. Number 2, man is deity. We're gods, they say. You just forgot your divinity. You just forgot it. You are. It doesn't mean that you're not. You just forgot it. Number 3, man is not limited by the pitiful body and the ego he mistakenly imagines himself to be. In other words, you got this low view of yourself. You think too lowly of yourself. Psalm 8 says, who are we that God's even thinking about us? Number 4, they say that man is a thetan, and your fundamental nature is basically good and divine. They say we're not morally fallen. Well, Genesis 3 totally refutes that. We did fall, and because we fell, sin cursed this world, and the only way now to be redeemed is through the blood of Jesus. He redeemed us. That's the whole Bible is alluding to that fact. Matter of fact, Revelation chapter 4 and 5 is all about that. It's Jesus receiving the title deed of creation that he bought with his own blood. He shed his blood for him. God gave him the title deed. And in Revelation chapter 6, the seal judgment starts to be unleashed where Jesus is reclaiming the world and he's driving out what don't need to be here. But they don't believe that. They believe that you're basically good, you're basically divine, you're not fallen, you're just ignorant of your own protection, of your own perfection. Man's only fall was into matter, not sin. In other words, we created this world and we entered it as a man to have fun and play. They call them Leelas, L-I-L-A, sports. That's games they play to amuse themselves free from eternal boredom. There's bored sitting around doing nothing, so they created these Leela, these games, and part of that was they all got together and said, let's create this universe, let's go down and play games in it. But the problem was, as they got immersed in it, they got too caught up in it because things kept happening, and it took away their memory. So they don't remember where they came from. That's what they believe. Now, look at number 6. Trillions of years ago, things became bored, so they emanated mental universes, just thought them up, to play and amuse themselves. Soon they became more and more entranced in their own creation until they were so conditioned by the manifestations of their own thought processes that they lost all awareness and their true identity and spiritual nature. Number 7, they became hypnotized and trapped by MEST. They call it MEST. Matter, energy, space, and time. You were a god, you were a thetan, but you created this universe and then you got trapped with it. You got hypnotized by it. It really caught your imagination. And matter, energy, space, and time imprisoned you. And you can't get out. You have to have them to help you to get out, and it costs money to do that. Now, number 8, the problem is that the accumulation of endless engrams throughout trillions of years of existence, and so the final result is man's a pitiful creature. Here's an example. Let's say 500 years ago, well, can't be 500 years ago, let's say 500 years ago, a little boy sitting in a tree, and a red wagon rides by, and it scares him, and he falls out of the tree and hurts himself. They say that created an engram in his mind, in his head. And I'll tell you some more about these engrams in a minute. But so in his mind, so now as an adult in 2023, red things scare him. He sees a red car, it kind of gives him a panic attack. He'll ride the red car or whatever. And so they hook him up to these little, he holds these little cans, they hook him into they run voltage to these little cans, and the color red pops over the screen, so, and the meter jumps a little bit, and so they write down red. And so when they let go of the cans and they see him in a chair, they say, okay, we noticed an engram when the red popped up. So there's something in your history that involves the color red. And so he's trying to think about it, and they're trying to help him out, and they eventually come to the conclusion that, well, when one of your many lifetimes or something red come up and it hurts you, so we got to help you now get over this fear of the color red. That's what their auditing is like. That's what they pay money to do. What's our response to that? Psalm 139, Genesis 1, man is wonderfully and gloriously created in the image of God. We are, and I wrote this down for you, we are Imagio Dei. We're created in the image of God. God stamped us as his own creation. You are not a God. You are not immortal. You were born to parents in a sin-cursed world. Your body will eventually fade out and give up. And your soul's going to live on. And you got to decide where that soul's going to live. You got to make that choice. You haven't been living for trillions of years. You do not get reincarnated. Remember, we'll talk about this in a minute. Hebrews 9, verse 27 says, it's appointed a man once to die. Just once. And then after that comes the judgment. You don't get millions of years trying to get it right. Or try to get it. The Bible is clear on that. All right? The doctrine of creation. And I'll give you some Hebrew for this. The universe was not created by a single supreme being. It doesn't have an existence of its own. In other words, number 2, Scientology, the universe constitutes a subjective mental emanation or a projection of the thetans, having merely an agreed upon and not an actual reality. So there was no God that created everything. All of us just got together trillions of years ago and made it up in our mind. We all agreed, hey, let's make a place to go play, have some fun. And so we created this world, and we came down here. That's what they say. All right, number 3, the entire physical universe is a game, a product of thetan ingenuity designed for escaping boredom. Number 4 is a product of thetan minds. The universe is capable of endless manipulation by an aware or spiritually enlightened thetan. That's why it changes all the time, because we're constantly reinventing stuff. Number 5, to the densely ignorant Thetans, that's me and you, as non-Scientologists, the universe is a deceptive and deadly spiritual trap where they're bound by engrams and think they're only physical bodies. That's our problem. You and I are ignorant. We're desperately ignorant. And we're trapped. Those engrams over trillions of years that's in our brains have convinced us that we're just here as physical beings that's going to die one day. We don't realize how great we really are. You know. Well, what's our response to that? Look at number 6. The universe was created ex nihilism, out of nothing. And I don't think people sometimes comprehend this. It wasn't like there was a blob of stuff in space and God reached down and said, let me mold the earth out of it. It was created out of nothing. There was nothing floating in space. There was nothing in the atmosphere. There's nothing in the universe. It's ex nihilo. It's Latin for out of nothing. It was out of nothing. God spoke it into existence. It wasn't like God was just up there and he saw this big ball of clay and he said, hey, let me make a world. God spoke it into existence. Ex nihilo. Genesis 1:1. And I gave you the Hebrews. I thought you might want to see some Hebrew. You see where the Hebrew writing starts? They write from right to left. So don't read it from left to right. Read it from right to left. Now, so I want to tell you the difference in something. When we translate something, translate means that we take it from another language and put it into English. For example, look at that. Look at you see the Hebrew, you see the second word, which would be the second one from the right? That is the Hebrew word bara. And so I transliterated it for you down there. Which means we take the Hebrew and then we put the Hebrew into English letters. You still can't read you still don't know what bara is because it's just transliterated. We take the Hebrew and then we put English letters behind it. Now, if we're going to translate that, then I'm going to tell you that bara means created. That's a translation. Bara means translation. It means transliterated. So Genesis 1:1 says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's what we believe. That's what the Bible says. We don't think that a bunch of folks got together, God's Thetans or whatever they want to call them, and just mind projected this stuff. We think that there was a literal God who spoke the world into existence over 6 days of creation. 6 yams. In Hebrew, it's yam, a 24-hour day. Because you'll hear even some Christian people say, well, creation took millions of years. That's why dinosaurs are millions of years old. It is not. The universe is about 12,000 years old. If you believe the Bible, then that's what it is. It was created in 6 yams, 6 24-hour days. Did dinosaurs exist? Absolutely. Dinosaurs were on the ark. Moses, Noah had them on the ark. Because a dinosaur, that's a French word. It was coined in 1800. It means terrible lizard. A dinosaur is a little reptile, a little salamander or something on the ark. That's a dinosaur. But they grew. What happens if Methuselah lived 969 years? All right? Mankind, you and I, what do we stop growing about 18 years? About 18 years, you're at your full height you're going to be. But what if I tell you a lizard is one of the only creatures on earth that continues to grow for as long as it lives? And so what if I tell you then that a lizard, a little salamander, is going to live for almost 1,000 years and it's going to grow over 1,000 years? How big do you think it's going to get? Yeah, that's why dinosaurs exist. And so we believe, though, that God, in 6 days of creation, 6 yams, created the world. Not this Thetan mind projection stuff. Now, the doctrine of salvation, soteriology. The pitiful Thetan slavery to matter, energy, space, and time. We're real pitiful because we're locked into this world. It continued for millennia until L. Ron Hubbard discovered the secret. He knows the nature of mankind, and he pioneered a solution to detail a plan of salvation. Isn't it interesting to you that if I was just piddling around in my house and I started mixing some stuff together and all of a sudden the thing I created in my kitchen could cure cancer, don't you think I'd go down to the hospital, especially the children's wards, and give them all a dose and help everybody out? Not L. Ron Hubbard. L. Ron said, you guys have been manipulated for years. You got caught in this mess. You're a prisoner of your own making. I know how to get you out, but it's going to cost you. I can free you from this stuff, but you're going to pay me some money. Because I can't get rich writing my books, but I can get rich creating a religion that you guys are going to fall for. Now, here's what's sad to me. 66% of the people surveyed came from Christian backgrounds. That means people sitting in churches just like this said, you know what, I'm going to abandon the words of Scripture and I'm going to follow this stuff. I'm going to believe this guy. Why do you think that is? Because you and I as a church are not doing our job. We are not discipling people. We're not teaching people how to defend the truth. We do a great job of getting people in and getting them saved and baptizing them. But then when they get baptized and we say, oh, you're in our church now, we don't teach them what it means to be a Christian. And we don't teach them what it means to study the Bible and show yourself approved to God. And we don't teach them how to defend themselves when somebody comes knocking on their door with this kind of baloney, because people out of Baptist churches and Methodist churches and Presbyterian churches are abandoning their church for this stuff. That's sad to me. And who do I blame for it? Us. I blame us. I blame preachers for not teaching correct doctrine and discipling their members. I blame Sunday school teachers for not standing on the truth and teaching their folks. I blame Christians for not reading their Bible daily and studying and knowing what's out there so that they can combat it when it hits them in the face. We're at fault for this stuff. No wonder these religions, matter of fact, Scientology is growing at a rate, just like Jehovah's Witness and Mormon, faster than Southern Baptists. Because they're doing a good job promoting their stuff. Me and you are not. We have this mentality in a Christian church that we're just going to sit in here and everybody's going to come here. But that's not the command of God. Nowhere in this Bible yet. I mean, we can debate this all day long, but nowhere in the Bible does it command lost people to come here. It commands us to go get them, to go to where they're at, but we don't do it. And so they're falling for this kind of stuff. Now, number 3. At a cost of tens of thousands of dollars, one is progressively saved from engrams by knowledge, or Scientology beliefs. It's a process called auditing. Now watch what this is. Scientology comes from a Latin word skio, which means knowing, and the Greek word logos, which means basically the study of. So Scientology is quite literally knowing how to know. That's their whole philosophy is, we're going to teach you to know what you don't know. You don't know that you are a god. You don't know that you are a thief. You don't know that you're immortal. Well, we're going to teach you how to know that. We're going to do all this auditing on you, and we're going to teach you how to do it. Now, number 4, the more money you pay for auditing, the more knowledge you receive until you arrive at the highest state of what they call an operating thief. What's our response? The Bible teaches that salvation is a free gift of God. You don't pay money for it. You don't earn it. You're redeemed from sin on the principle of grace. And it's all through the atonement of Christ. We believe in the vicarious substitutionary death of Christ, where He died on the cross in our place as our substitute. And when He died and shed His blood for us, it paid for our sin debt. He didn't charge us for it. There's nowhere in the Bible where Jesus says, hey, go join Spring Creek Baptist Church, cut them a $5,000 check, you can go to heaven. He didn't do that. He said it is a free gift. Anybody, any religion, any cult that tries to teach you that you can be saved on a path other than the free gift of God, especially if they say you got to pay for it, Paul says it's another gospel. And Paul's word is it's an anathema. It's a curse. It's something to avoid, mark and avoid. So it's pretty strong stuff. Now, the doctrine of death. And I agree with this. They sometimes see it as a blessing. So do I. Because sometimes to die and go to heaven is, Paul says, for me it's gain. It's better for me. Better for you I stay here and teach you and help you. Better for me to go. We can agree on that. However, for them, it's because death is endlessly repeatable through reincarnation. It's almost inconsequential. They don't care about dying because they're just going to come back again. For them, it releases the person from the imprisonment of the body. I don't know where that should have came in there. And I proved this. I told April I proofread this. The thetan can be released into a higher state of awareness. What's our response? Death's a one-time event. It happens one time. And it carries either the most beautiful blessing, eternal heaven, or the most horrible consequences, eternal hell. Death happens one time. And then after you die, you're either going to be eternally blessed or eternally cursed. That's what the Bible teaches. After we die, Hebrews 9:27, then we go to the judgment. There's none of this reincarnation business. None of this you get a second chance. It's you get one shot at it. And then here's their distinctive beliefs. Humans are immortal. A person's life experience transcends a single lifetime. Humans possess infinite capabilities. And then there's two major divisions of the mind. One they call the reactive mind. That absorbs all the pain and trauma. That's where all those engrams go. Is your reactive mind has got you prisoner. Because all them bad things happen to you over trillions of years, that's ingrained in your reactive mind. And that causes you, when something happens, you react negatively. You have a bad reaction to it because these engrams over trillions of years has put these bad thoughts in your head. So whenever something happens, you can't deal with it correctly. And they have a word for that. And I think I wrote it down in here for you. I think we'll get there. And then you have an analytical mind. That's the rational mechanism which is responsible for consciousness. The reactive mind stores mental images which are not readily available to the analytical mind. So your mind's split into two parts. One's reactive, all these engrams are in there, but the analytical mind, you can't see those. And so the part of you that acts consciously, that walks around and talks and interacts with people, it's not privy to those engrams, those bad things. They manifest when something bad happens, when it gets triggered. And then when it gets triggered, you react, but you don't know why you're acting like that. And they'll say, people will say, I don't know why I just blew up at you like that. And a Scientologist will say it's because the reactive part of your mind had an engram in it and it got triggered somehow. And so the process of auditing is to get your analytical mind to understand where those engrams come from so that you can react normally. They call it at cause. So you can be at cause, at peace with it. Number 4, let me add this in. There's 3 stages. I guess there's 4 stages. There's people like me and you that are non-Scientologists. We're forever ignorant. That's what they say about us. Then there's pre-clear, when you're walking around like us, but you're open to it. You're open to this Scientology stuff, so you're pre-clear, which means you still have all this baggage in your brain. Then there's clear, which means you've gotten rid of some of these engrams and you're progressing better. I mean, you've paid a lot of money to get to this point. And then they call it an operating fee. You gotta have Tom Cruise money to get there. And when you become an operating thetan, you're basically a god on earth. You just haven't transcended yet. And an operating thetan, in their philosophy, can do all kind of cool things. There are reports of Scientologists who say that they can lift the phone receiver off the base from another room. You know, so there are Scientologists say I'm an operating thief, and they'll say they can read a book from a mile away. You don't have to have a book in front of them. They can read it from a mile away. That'd be awesome. Yeah. One lady from Texas, or actually she's from Washington, D.C., her mama's from Texas, she says that because she's achieved this, she can actually visit her mother in Texas while her body stays behind in Washington, D.C. She don't have to go. I'm like, man, you save a fortune on plane travel. You know, that's awesome. You know, but that's what they're teaching people. That once you get to this operating thief level, man, you got unlimited capability. You can do anything. You just can't do it right now because your mind's full of this garbage, and you got to fight your way out of it. And the only way to fight your way out of it is to pay us a lot of money and let us hook you up some tin cans and shoot a charge through you, and then you can get out of it. Number 5, engrams are painful and debilitating, and as they accumulate, people move further and further away from their true identity. Avoiding this fate is Scientology's basic goal. Number 6, it's not diabetic, it's diegetic auditing is one way by which the Scientologists may progress toward the clear state, winning gradual freedom from the reactive mind's engrams and acquiring certainty of their reality as a thetan. You get closer and closer to realizing who you are. Number 7, the analytical mind processes daily information and events. The reactive mind produces the mind's aberrations, such as fear, inhibition, intense love, hate, psychotic ills, all of which are recorded in engrams. You ever wonder why Tom Cruise pitched such a fit about when he was doing an interview and they was talking about psychological help, going to a psychologist and getting medication? Is because they think that those psychological pains in your brain are caused by these engrams. You don't need medication, you just need auditing. You just need to go hold them cans and get shot so you can figure out what's causing that pain in the first place. And then you don't need medicine to do that, you need Scientology to do that. That's when they flipped out when they mentioned psychological medication. Number 8, people have hidden abilities which have not yet been fully realized, like visiting your parents from 5 states away. It's believed that increased spiritual awareness and physical benefits are accomplished through counseling sessions referred to as auditing. Number 9, through auditing, people can solve their problems and free themselves of engrams. Number 10, freeing oneself of engram restores you to the natural condition as thetans, enables you to be at cause in your daily life, meaning you can react rationally and creatively to life events rather than reacting to them under the direction of stored engrams. Number 11, you advance from pre-clear to clear to operating thetan. Their aim, their goal is to clear the planet, where everybody has cleared themselves of engrams. Of course, each auditing session to advance costs more and more money. Number 13, they use e-meters. Measures minute changes in electrical resistance throughout the body when a person holds electrodes, basically metal cans, and small currents pass through them. Changes in the meter display reveals engram that can be addressed and dealt with. That's how they know where you're triggered. And then 14 is very elitist. Only the super rich can advance, so it becomes a process they can hold over others that can't afford it and think they're better than everybody else. And it becomes a super clique where all these Hollywood political folks, they jump on board because not everybody can do it, and they like to be elitist. Whatever to the contrary they may say, they like that elitism. They like being different than everybody else. So, any questions about Scientology? Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just a little bit, I have a couple questions. The first one, I guess, is what are they saying that the money is doing?
It's just paying for the courses.
Oh, okay, so it's courses.
Yeah.
And then if their goal is to clear the whole world, or clear the planet, but people can't afford it, then why are they charging so much is what I don't understand.
Well, what they say is their goal in the process of going about it is counterintuitive, counterproductive. Yeah. No, everybody can't afford to get to that state. It costs. I mean, they have little segments, and each segment costs around $5,000, $5,500, and there might be 30 segments. Then you go to the next step, and 30 more go to the next step, and then you may be clear, and then you got to start that process all over. I mean, it gets into at Tom Cruise's level. I mean, he's paid millions. I mean, they got a lot of money.
Who's getting all this money?
Yeah, well, the leadership of the Scientology group, David Miscavige is the president now, and he's making a fortune.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, like, once you get to the top,
Once you get to the top, no, like Tom Cruise, for example. Tom Cruise says he's at the top. He says he's an operating thief. And when Tom Cruise dies, he goes back into that realm of the thieves. He don't get reincarnated.
but you have to keep paying to stay at the top?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You keep paying.
It's like upkeep lessons, I guess.
That's right. You gotta have continuing ed credit, you
Start
know.
all over again from the bottom?
Well, that's their operating premise, that if you can only achieve this level in this lifetime, then when you come back, you technically should start at that level again, so you keep working towards the highest. So once you get to the highest, though, you're not reincarnated again. Because then you fully realize that you're really a god, and you can go live with the other gods that have realized the same thing.
That man at the top has a good pyramid scheme.
Oh, he's got a great pyramid scheme.
A real good one.
Yeah, he's making a fortune. Well, they have a huge leadership group.
Is there anything that they do, like anything whatsoever that like worships God or honors God and like anything?
No, because God's not important to them, because you're actually honorable. And their whole goal is, you can call it anything you want, because they just want you to realize your true self, so that you can go join that great group in the wherever.
So it's like buying your way in.
It's buying your way into it. And if you talk to Scientologists, say, do you believe in God? You know what they're going to say? Yes, we do. And you'll say, well, that's cool. Y'all are Christians then. You believe in God. You know, the Bible says the devils believe in God. The devils believe in Jesus. And so just because somebody tells you they believe in God, Jehovah's Witnesses believe in God, Mormons believe in God, and Mormons consider themselves Christians. Matter of fact, Mormons get real upset if you list a group of Christians and don't include them in it, you know, because they say, we're Christian too, we believe in God. No, you don't, you know. But they, you know, they're very misguided folks.
So if they're going through this, are they taking their families through it with them? Like
Well,
the wife and kids go
that's the idea.
through?
That's the idea. But some of them, like Tom Cruise's wife and daughter, bailed on him. They said, it's ridiculous. We're getting out of this stuff. And then that one sheet I gave you about how to identify a cult, you'll see one of them on there is, once you leave their group, you're dead to them. I mean, they don't, you're a heretic, you're bad news, bad seed. They tell everybody to stay away from you. They slander you in the papers and all kinds of stuff. Especially with Scientology, because it's mostly Hollywood elite. So once one of them abandons, like Leah Remini and Tom Cruise's people, once you get out, man, they run you down all over Hollywood. You have a hard time getting an acting gig again because they talk bad about you.
Now, I've seen, speaking of Leah Remini, where they threaten you if you're trying to leave, where they know your deepest secrets and what you're most ashamed of,
Yeah,
and they threaten to, like, release that information if you leave
right.
without paying them.
Well, they all kind of blackmail and that's a cult. You know, I've said this 100 times. I want people to come to this church because they want to, not because they feel threatened to. And I want people to come and get saved because they want to. They feel the Spirit leading them to. I don't want to guilt them into it. I don't want to shame them into it. You know, but that's what cults do. They keep you. They manipulate because they want to control your every daily aspect of life. They want to control everything. And we don't. I mean, I don't want to tell you how to live. I want you to live within God's Word, you know, but we're all free to live our own life, but we live it in the confines of God's Word. And to me, the whole point, and I told you all this last week, I really am conflicted to stand up here and talk for 45 minutes about these cults, because I feel like I might give them all this kind of airtime and stuff. But I want us to know that these people are out there, and here's what they believe, because it's our job to tell them about Jesus. It's our job when a Scientologist tells you, yes, I believe in God, we should be bold enough to say, no, you don't. Let me tell you about the God of the Bible that we serve. If you're really a Christian, this is the God you serve. You know, a God that created the world ex nihilo, a God that loves us in spite of ourselves. You know, a God that reached down and died for us and gave us a free gift of salvation. You don't have to pay money and earn it and all this stuff. That's what you and I are supposed to be doing. It's our job to do that. That's why I want to go through this stuff, because you may not run into a lot of Scientologists. I mean, they're mostly West Coast type folks. I mean, there are some here, but you can run into Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and Seventh-day Adventists and Pentecostal and all. You can run into those groups all the time, and you just need to know so you defend yourself. And I know people like, well, Pentecostal is that. Well, they got some really anti-scriptural beliefs, and we'll talk about that.
The main place it is in California, but their second place is Clearwater, Florida.
Yeah, they have 700 centers.
Yeah, we went, I took Reese to see Winter of the Dolphin there in Clearwater. There are buildings everywhere. It's very bizarre, but there are
Yeah.
buildings everywhere with like little,
Yeah, they got their symbol on it.
yeah.
It's strange. But you can read this though, and you can know that this came out of a science fiction writer's mind. I mean, that'd be a great movie. You know,
It certainly feels like it's set up as a book.
yeah. It came out of he was failing, and he wrote that book Dianetics, and it got really popular. And this was a lot of stuff he got out of that. And then he blended in Hinduism, Buddhism, some Western type philosophy. He blended a lot of things together, and that's, I mean, he tells you in his own words. That's where the money is. Create a religion. That's where you get rich. And that's why I say, if you get deceived, that's one thing. But if the guy's telling you he's deceiving you while you still let him do it, then that's on you. You just haven't done the research, and you just don't know about what the Bible says. Anybody else? All right, well, I'm going to dismiss with our online crowd. Appreciate you guys coming with us tonight.